What's up, YouTube? 大家好，皆さんこんにちは。大家好. What's up? This is Ben Parker back with another Chinese-Japanese video, kind of about my journey learning the languages of Chinese and Japanese. Actually, today it's really focused on Chinese, specifically Mandarin versus Cantonese. What's the difference? So for those that are it is in Japanese, ごめんなさい, sumimasen, I'm sorry. So, and by the way, just for those that want to learn some fun vocab, basic vocab, 大家好 means hello everyone in Mandarin. 皆さんこんにちは means hello everyone in Japanese. And 大家好 means hello everyone in Cantonese. Okay, so 大家 means 大家 means everyone. 好 means good, so that's how that works in Mandarin. And then 皆さん means everyone in Japanese, and konnichiwa is a standard hello greeting. And then 大家 means like it's the same as 大家 in Mandarin, but it's Cantonese 大家, and then 好 means good, so 大家好. So anyway, here's some free vocab for you guys to learn for those that are interested in those languages. But today's topic is Mandarin versus Cantonese. Which one should you learn and why? Okay, so I've been learning Mandarin Chinese for 3 years on YouTube. 我学了中文3年了, and I've been studying Japanese for 1 year on on YouTube as well. 私勉強日本語が1年. So, look, my Chinese is got a long ways to go. 但是呢，我觉得中文非常好玩. However, I do think Chinese is lots of fun. And 今天我想帮你们认识中文和广东话. I want to help you guys get to know, become familiar with Mandarin and Cantonese. And by the way, if I say anything wrong in Chinese or anyone has any tips for me, feel free to comment. Hey, dude, you said that wrong. But the purpose of today's video is, what is the difference between Mandarin and Cantonese? Okay? And the reason I'm doing this video is because this is a very common topic that is discussed a lot on online. And when people ask you oh, are you learning Chinese? Typically people will ask you are you learning Mandarin or Cantonese? And the reason why that is, why Cantonese is always kind of the Robin to Mandarin's Batman, if you want to look at it that way, is because Cantonese is the lingua franca of Hong Kong, and Hong Kong for a long time has been a major economic powerhouse in the Chinese speaking world. So if you want to get around Hong Kong and do business in Hong Kong, Cantonese is the language, is the dialect of Chinese that you want to learn. It's still that way, and it was even more so that way, 25 years ago, 20 years ago, but it's still that way. If you want to get around Hong Kong, you got to know Cantonese, is what it is. And people in Hong Kong are very proud of their Cantonese, and they're very resistant to learning Mandarin and all that, even though it is the government language of the People's Republic of China. So I don't want to go off into that whole thing about the politics involved with Mandarin versus Cantonese, but it's just important to understand that Cantonese is spoken in Hong Kong and the Guangdong province. So 香港人他们说广东话. So Cantonese, Hong Kong people, so 香港 is Hong Kong in Chinese Mandarin. So 香港人说 speak 广东话. Cantonese, Hong Kong people, Hong Kongers speak Cantonese. Okay, so first things first. So in terms of Mandarin, what is Mandarin Chinese? Mandarin Chinese is the official government language of the People's Republic of China. Okay, so if you go to the PRC, mainland China, everyone speaks Mandarin Chinese. Okay, that's the government language. Okay, now everyone also speaks their regional dialect as well, and there are some older generations of people that only speak, that primarily just speak their regional dialect. But Mandarin is the government language of the PRC, People's Republic of China, and it's also one of the official recognized languages of Taiwan, also known as the Republic of China. And Taiwan has a few other recognized languages as well, so Hokkien and Taiwanese and whatnot. So Taiwan doesn't just have Mandarin as its recognized language, but everyone in Taiwan learns Mandarin in school. So bottom line, if you just want to communicate with a mass amount of people possible in Chinese, Mandarin is the way to go. We're talking like over a billion people in mainland China, another however many people in Taiwan. And then on top of that, in Chinese diaspora communities throughout the world, in major cities such as London, New York, like Sydney, Australia, Los Angeles, etc. Mandarin is the form of Chinese that you want to learn. Okay, so if you're wondering like, oh, I want to learn Chinese, like, should I learn Mandarin or Cantonese? What should I learn? If your goal is strictly about talking to the most amount of people, and you're talking about like professional opportunities, just raw opportunity, you want to roll with 普通话, as it's called in Mandarin. So, but that said, if you were interested in Hong Kong culture, if you are really interested in Hong Kong, or if you have friends and family or something, well, if you have family speak, you probably already speak it, but if you got friends that speak Cantonese, or if you just really find like Hong Kong culture and like Cantonese culture, that southern China really interesting, then you should roll with Cantonese and have fun with that. So that's kind of the main difference there in terms of like why would you learn one over the other. So if you're looking to do business in Hong Kong and southern China, Cantonese is the way to go. But if you're just looking to talk to mass amount of Chinese people, then Mandarin is the way to go. I should also add to that Mandarin, the difference between Mandarin and Cantonese, really quickly for those that are curious, like what's the difference? Like, can they understand each other? The answer is no. Okay, so like in some situations, like for example, say hello in Mandarin is ni hao, and in Cantonese it's nei hao. You might think, oh, that's similar. But like 1 through 10 in Mandarin versus 1 through 10 in Cantonese is very, very different. It might as well be as different as like 1 through 10 in Japanese. So like 1 through 10 in Mandarin is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, that's 1 through 10 in Mandarin. And in Cantonese, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and then in Japanese, for those that are curious, it's ichi, ni, san, shi, yon. Shi and yon both mean 4. Go, roku, shichi, nana both mean 7. And then hachi is 8. And then ku, kyu both mean 9. And then ju is 10. So, anyway, that's different. So I promised no Japanese today. But that's the difference, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So those are like very, very different, right? So all of a sudden you start hearing the differences. It's like, whoa, like they actually sound different. So they sound different. One thing you might notice briefly in the little bit of Cantonese I did speak is that Cantonese as their words often can end in like K and P, and it doesn't in Mandarin. So that's why you hear a lot of like guap, cop, bop, like k and p sounds in Cantonese. Those stop Ks, those literal stops as they're called, those do not exist in Mandarin. Those are gone. And Cantonese is actually often viewed as like closer to like classical Chinese, because classical Chinese and Middle Chinese had those same endings with the K and the P, right? Also, too, one other kind of side note with Cantonese is one that is kind of cool is if you study Japanese and you study the onyomi and the kunyomi, and the onyomi is the pronunciation modeled after the Chinese pronunciation, right? In Japanese, it's the pronunciation, the kanji, modeled after the Chinese pronunciation, the onyomi. One that's kind of interesting is that the onyomi in Japanese sound more closer to the Cantonese way of pronouncing a character than the Mandarin way. So one basic example is how to say big in Mandarin is da, and in Cantonese it's dai, and in Japanese it's also dai. He doesn't have to go low with the tone, right? So that's kind of interesting to kind of see the comparison between Mandarin and Japanese and Canton, how they're kind of related that way with the kanji. So that's kind of cool. So if you're looking at like, if you study Cantonese, like it's probably a little easier for you to pick up the onyomi in Japanese. You probably see more similarities there. Kind of cool. But like that's not the reason to learn Cantonese. Like, oh, so you learn Japanese easier. Like it's not the reason you learn it. But that's kind of interesting thing. One last thing too is Cantonese has kind of a couple more things. Cantonese has they use the same characters as Mandarin does, but like their vocabulary is kind of more archaic sometimes. So other words, like to say like drink in Mandarin is he, and in Cantonese it's yam, and the way you say yam in Mandarin with that same character is yin, and so yin second tone. So I'm sorry if my pronunciations are a bit off, but anyway, so like the character to drink in Mandarin, Cantonese uses a different character to say drink, and those characters exist in Chinese across the board, no matter what version you speak. But Cantonese is kind of a different like vocabulary. It's like how like in Great Britain and British English versus American English have different like ways of saying the same thing, the different vocabulary, right? Like we still use the same words, but like we just have different vocabulary than they do sometimes with some stuff. But then it's like imagine different vocabulary, and then on top of that having a completely different way of pronouncing the same word, right? So it's like how I'm trying to remember British English versus American English is like how we say like a good easy example is like we will say elevator, they say lift, right? But then imagine if like they had a completely different way of pronouncing the word lift, and that's kind of how like Mandarin and Cantonese are different. So hopefully that kind of that example of British English versus American English kind of makes sense. It's like they have different, they use, they have synonyms for saying the same stuff, but then the way they pronounce that synonym is also different. So imagine if instead of saying lift, they said like Luft, the Luft, or something weird like that. And then like we got to know that, okay, so Luft in British English means lift in American English, and it's the same thing as what we call lift, they call Luft. And so there's kind of an added twist to that in Cantonese as well, which is kind of interesting. So you just got to learn about it, just say Chinese. Other thing too is the tone system is different. So in Mandarin Chinese has got 4 tones, 四声, 4 tones, and also a neutral tone. And Cantonese has got 六声, so 6 tones, 六声, so 6 tones. And so in Mandarin it goes like this. It's like ma, 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 ma. And then ma for neutral tone. And then in Cantonese, it's got a high flat tone, a high rising tone, which is the same as Mandarin, a mid flat tone, which is unique to Cantonese. It's got a low rising tone, okay, which is unique to Cantonese. And then a dropping tone, which is the same as Mandarin. And then a low flat tone, which is unique to Cantonese. So it goes like this. And that part, I apologize if I butcher a little bit, but it goes like C, 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 like that. So high flat, high rising, mid flat, dropping, low rising, low flat. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, once again, high flat, high rising, mid flat, low rising, or dropping is the 4th tone, right? Low rising is the 5th tone, and the 6th tone is the low flat tone. So yeah. So also like Cantonese has got different tones. So basically in terms of spoken Cantonese, how it's different is it's got more tones, right? Because it's more pitch sensitive, right? They use the glottal stop with the P and the K sound, right? So like a lot of sounds like guac, cop, dot, right? So luck, like luck, guac, those kind of sounds. Those are all very Cantonese. Those are Cantonese sounds that are used in Cantonese. So the P and the K sound is still there, and then the different tones, and then the vocabulary is also kind of different sometimes. So, but it's all the same characters. So if you learn how to read standard Chinese, people that speak Cantonese can, and Mandarin can both communicate to each other through the writing, because the Chinese characters are only the same thing. So people can communicate across different dialects in China using the characters. But anyway, that's probably more than you guys wanted to know about Mandarin versus Cantonese. So the short answer, once again, is look, if you're interested in communicating with the mass amount of people possible in China, Mandarin Chinese, 普通话, 国语中文, that's the way you want to go. And if you are like super interested in Cantonese culture and really want to get to know Hong Kong really, really well, and or if you just want to learn like a harder version of Chinese, or if like you want to learn a regional dialect, then Cantonese, 广东话, is the way that you want to roll. So hopefully this video helped some of you that are interested in learning Chinese out. knowing the difference between Mandarin and Cantonese and why one over the other. Um, and if you're interested in obviously more of my content, you find my content interesting, hit that subscribe button and check out my channel, subscribe to it. And if you want to connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the handle is slamdunk406. You'll find that I do a lot of basketball writing. I cover the Cal Bears basketball team for Rivals.com. So if like college hoops is your thing, then definitely check my stuff out there at slamdunk406 on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. But I'm all ears to all things Chinese and Japanese as well. So if you have any questions on that stuff, feel free to ask me on social media. And then lastly too, if anybody like wants to know how to get a good start on studying Chinese or Japanese on YouTube, I made a video a while back that goes to my favorite YouTube channels to study. So definitely check that out as well, because there's some amazing Chinese and Japanese teachers. 中文老师, the uncle got sensei on YouTube. So if you're not sure where to start, that video I do on my favorite channels might help as well. So on that note, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay safe during this COVID season, and peace out.